I'll tell you, I've learned a lot doing these demos. I can turn most anything, but as far as demos, this has been a learning experience. This is what we're going to show tonight. The first one we showed was an offset or a bowl with an offset cavity. This is a bowl with an offset cavity and these inlays put in, or router inlays. These are square pieces put into with a 90-degree cutter. This was in Tom Kenny's shop. Tom Kenny's got a gorgeous shop, and Walt Wager did the editing. The only excuse I have is me, I guess. So now we're going to make the same kind of a thing, a bowl that's centered with an offset cavity. And the thing is, the cavity on this is set probably a quarter of an inch above center. We're going to cut these inlays in with a router, and the center of that is going to be way down here, so that you can see these all point way down here. That's how we're going to do this. And there's all different kinds of things you can do with this. These are just a couple of them. This one, I did the same kind of a thing. I didn't put an inlay in. It just cut. These are 90-degree slots, cut with about an 1.5 inch cutter, or 1 inch cutter on this. And I'll show the inlays later. But same kind of thing. Well, this is an OG or an ID cut rather than OD, like that, so that you can see, you can get the different shapes on the bottom, as long as you leave yourself enough thickness to do the cutting on the top. Okay, so we're going to start out with the same procedure. We'll start with a block of wood, a round block of wood. We're going to put it in the center up against the faceplate, turn a recess in here, and then I'm going to turn this around, and I'll mount it in a chuck, and then it'll be in a chuck here instead of this faceplate. And now I'll bring this up, put this in here, tighten this up, put glue on it, and mount that in place. So then we have this sort of thing. We've got the groove cut on this side, and we have a tenon, sacrificial tenon on this side. Pause. Now we've got the piece with the sacrificial tenon glued on the end of it, and I'm going to radius this. I'll tell you what, I'm going to, instead of being an OD, I'll do a recess on this side. But everything's in place. Flatten the bottom out. I like a face shield. Safety glasses are all right, but I like a face shield. I don't like that. That's better. Since this is a side grain piece, I'm going to turn from the bottom out. Nice radius. You pivot on your thumb. You make a nice radius almost every time. And I'll just clean this up. This is it. Now I'd actually sand this and get it finished up. I think that's pretty close to where I want to be. I would probably designate what this is going to be. I like the smaller. This is fun to do, but you got to watch real close now when you start turning the recessed bowl inside. I might have gone a little further than I normally do. But that's how you do things in a demo, right? It's got a little danger. Put the foot on here. And recess in here. Now normally I would sand this all up. I'm too far off the tool rack, and I'm too lazy to move it. But that looks pretty good, I think. But this would be all sanded. Although I could sand it later. I have a flat surface here. I could sand it later. But now I'll take this off and show what has to be done next. Pause. Now we have the piece turned. I have a sacrificial tenon on the back, and I'm going to start to do some layout on the front. First thing I do is put this in here and put the piece. One more hand, guys. Put the piece in the lathe and make this horizontal like this. That's horizontal there. Now I'm going to put this in. The grain's running this way, and I've decided to I'm going to put the inlays in pointing down this way, and this will be the narrow part of the bowl. So I'm going to put this in. I've drawn a line. In fact, I'll draw a better line so you can see it. And so I can see it too. Right about here. Now, I've already done this in ink. Is that too much reflection? Can you see that?
It's a little closer to the camera. Yeah, that helps. That helps. Good.
Right there, I think you can see. This is the center. This is the center of the bowl, of the whole thing. This is going to be the center of the cavity in the bowl. And down here is the center of the inlays looking in. You can hardly see these. I've drawn these, and I'll show cutting that. But right now, you don't want to. You want to have this defined. So what I'll do is I'll take my compass and I'll put it in the offset circle here. Tighten this up, and I'll swing an arc. It could be in this one. I'm swinging an arc now This will be the cavity of my bowl, if I could hold the thing. So now I know where the cavity is going to be. And I don't cut that first because I want these inlays, when you see the strips I'm going to inlay into there, to come inside of this. And then when I cut the bowl cavity, I cut the inlay and the cavity at the same time. Otherwise, you cut the cavity, and then after you inlay these, you have to reset this to try to find that cavity, which can be done, but it's almost impossible. So right now, I'm going to do the router cuts of the inlays. That router cut is down here. It's a ½ inch below center here. So I'm going to set this up a ½ inch below center. And then I'll show this. So now we've got this kind of laid out. I'm going to use a table that I've made. This is a welded plate with the tool rest is my son's old weight bar. That fits in here. With that spacer, now that's going to give me, my router's going to sit on here. And it's going to be, have a router. It's a Bosch router with a little stand I made. And the router bit is a 1-inch diameter, 90-degree. You've got to make sure it's a V cutter. They make 90-degree cutters that are not ground all the way to the end, to the tip. And when you use them in a router table, you can plane a board or whatever, put chamfer the edges of anything, and it works beautiful. But when you go to cut a V, that square on the end puts a flat bottom in the slot. This is a V cutter. And it's going to sit on here and go like this. As soon as I get it all set up, the indexing now is not easy. This is half of it. Working on everybody else's lathe, the height and everything else is all different, and you're not too sure where you're at. But anyway, this part is going to go into the. This part is going to go down in the bed of the lathe. Move this out of the way. And in fact, I can move all this out of the way, I suppose. This is going to go in the bed of the lathe. This is kind of neat. There's a pin in here. So when you put this in the lathe, it's going to go down between the slot. When you turn this to tighten it, it turns 90 degrees and hits this pin. And that lets you tighten it. When you loosen it up, and when it turns this way, it hits the pin the other way, and it's parallel to the lathe bed, so it lets it release. So I'm going to put this in here now and turn this with a flat screwdriver until it tightens up. It doesn't have to tighten up real tight. It just has to hold it in that slot. That's a little big. And then this part goes up and down. Register my 0. I have to take the check off. Once I take the check off, I can put my indexing wheel on here. This takes a little while, but it's got to be set up right because the register on this has got to be the same as what you've got on the bowl. And if it isn't, your inlays are going to be cut at a different angle to the bowl. This is my indexing wheel. This is masonite. It's been screwed to a lot of different things. But anyway, it's every 5 degrees. There's a slot. I've cut a slot in here. And this fits over the
over the spindle onto the boss at the back. And you screw this on here like this. This is not only the chuck, but it's the nut that holds things in place, or the nut that does it. And now, this is a piece of plywood, but it's also a tool. When I set this on the table here, that's exactly the height of my cutter, so I know where my cutter's at. Right now I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to tighten this. Should have done this before. I've got a smaller key at home, but got a lot of things at home. It should tighten. I'm tightening this in here now because this now is going to be, that's where my table has to be parallel to this bar that's in here. However, I want this to 0, so I want to loosen this and turn this so that it zeros when I clamp it on here. I want this to be parallel to my indexing wheel. That's pretty close. Doesn't have to be exact, but I like it pretty close. That's pretty close. Now I can take this out. And now to set this at 0, I bring this out to wherever I have to be. Move this over. This thing, I don't know if you can see this. This thing now has a bolt through, a carriage bolt through here. There's a carriage bolt through here with a wing nut on the other side. So now we've got this wheel locked on here with a chuck. And I've got this board locked in here that this is set at 0. And I want the 0, when it's at 0, I want that thing to be parallel with the table. So I've made this slot so I can raise this up and down. And I want it, if I want it exactly right, I can even measure this with a ruler. And then I can tell. It's 2 3/4, 3. So I want this to be up a little bit, just a touch. There's a touch. Two 3/4, 3. So this. Just to go up a little bit, I didn't raise it. Okay. And 3, almost 3. Perfect. So now this is parallel with the table. Doesn't look that way, but it is. That means when I put this in the chuck, my 0 line now is registered with this plate, and it's parallel to this table. So I can take this out of here. And I can put this in here. Pause. Okay, now the chuck, this table, when I bring this table up here, I can see that that's 0 to 0. It's parallel to this chuck. I'm set at 0 over here, so my register is right from here to there. Okay? Now, lower this, get it out of the way. I'm going to put the bolt in here like that. And I'm going to move it to this side here. So this is parallel now. My center line that I put on here before is parallel to the table. Let me lock this down a little more. Too much. And I'm going to bring this around now to where that's, you could actually see it this way, to where this is centered now on our register right here. This is parallel to this. So I tighten this up. Now I want to move it off center. And I could show that over here. I'm going to move this off center now, this way. So that the center's over here. That's it. Yeah, there it is. And I'm going to tighten this up. That saves you measuring. You could measure the offset. You could measure the offset up here, but this way you've got it exactly on center. So now I know, after all that, I know that this is parallel with this. Should be, yeah. And I got this out of touch. And I can drop this down to here. Get to the slot here, right there. And now, I know that this right now is going to hit, this should be 0 here, which it is, and it should be 0 here, which it is. 0 there, and 0 there. Nothing to it, huh? Okay. Make sure this is tight. Now, the depth of cut is set. There's a shelf on here. So this is my depth of cut. The router sticking out, whatever depth that is. But I'm going to cut the first one at 0. And I'm going to bring this in. It's going to be parallel. And I could try that right there, I think. Lock everything up. Now I'm going to cut on the 0 line here. This is why you do it in pencil. I've got this thing backwards. I'm on the right center. This is set right. Now I have to rotate this because I want to cut this one first. there's not too much to think about. You just have to, I'm gonna cut this one first. That's perfect. That's the right height. That's gotta be parallel. It's locked in. This is the depth. Everything's locked. Perfect. Okay, always look twice before you make the first cut, because after that it's over. You can see the center of the bowl. This is going to be our first cut. I'm going to go 11/16. I'll try this and see how much I've cut. Ready? Here's the cutter. I'm going to stick it in the middle. I like the cut, it's perfect. It's not quite deep enough. It's always best to go not quite deep enough and then move it in a little bit. That's a little too deep, I think. There's no fine adjustment on this. This is just by eye, and it also could be done at an angle. I think I want to touch right there. Is that still not out enough? On the final cut, blow everything out of here. Don't get near that router. Okay. Now we've got our first cut, and this is going to be what it looks like when we take a piece of square stock and inlay it in there. It's going to look like that. I'll show that later.
Hold on a second.
This is just square stock. This is maple, and this is Wengi. Okay, so now we know that we're going to do 30 degree. This is 0. I'm going to index to 30 degrees, which is here. That's going to give me a cut in here. You always pull the router this way. The router is spinning this way, and if you push it this way, it wants to climb. We pull it this way, it wants to press into the table, and that's what you want. 60 degrees. It's pretty good. Also, this is fine enough or a good enough adjustment. I could go back to any of these. So that thing really works. It's also, this is a square router, 90-degree router that I could put a square piece in. And that works good. But you could also have a round cut around there, a bullnose, and that would put in you could lay a dowel in there and clamp it, and that would work too. So I'll do one more and I'll do the other side. That's enough of that side. I'll go to 0. I'll go up beyond 0, 30 degrees. Now we're cutting the other half. You could go more, whatever. That should be it. Now, the whole thing is cut. And you can see, I cut short pieces and lay them in here. These longer ones, they're longer pieces, but you can see where you can actually see where the bowl cavity is going to be. So you cut these long enough to extend over the outside and go well into the middle, just so you can turn that out. And through the miracle of video, we happen to have one that's all glued up. Voila. And now I have to remove the indexing part of this thing, because we can turn this and we're going to go off center, but we're not going to do the router part. That's done now. And the indexing wheel can come off. And this can come out. That screwdriver is the hardest thing to find in there. Now I've taken the thing we just cut, I've glued the pieces into here, so we've got all our inlays glued in. I ran around the outside of this with a bandsaw. Each one of these sticks out like 1/4 of an inch. So rather than try to cut those off, I hit it with a bandsaw. And now, I don't know where the center is on this thing. About here, I think. I'm going to plane these off. I shifted this from the center that I had for the inlays, which was about down here, to the other side of center, which is up here. This is center, and this is the other side. So this is the center of the inlays down here. This is the horizontal mark through here. This is the center of the inlays down here. And this is center of the bowl, the outside, and this is the center of the bowl cavity that I'm going to cut next. This is going to be off center. It's going to look all funny, but it'll look better in a minute. You got to make sure you turn everything because some of these stick up further than others, and always rotate your piece. Oh, I was gonna say, make sure the chuck stays on the lathe when you do it. Anyhow, now we got things hooked up, everything's tight. You should make sure everything is tight. Look at this. You start talking and waving your arms around, and pretty soon you forget something. And the piece comes off and hits you. All righty. Actually, I could use the tailstock for a while. Maybe I should just do that. Show it a little safer here. Move this up, bring the tailstock in. Anytime you go off center, you put the piece off center, but the centers are still the same this way. So you can always use the tailstock no matter what's happening out here. That's kind of nice too. These are horizontal fibers, the pieces, the inlays, and I'm going to cut the ends off of them. I'm not just going to plow them, I'm going to cut the ends off of them. It just makes a little smoother cut rather than tearing into them. On the outside, I'll turn the outside this way. So now you can see what I'm doing here. See, I'm taking the edges off. I'm not just tearing these things apart. I've left little nipples on each one of these. I'm taking these off this way. Now we'll start the bolt cavity itself. Take your time. The center part's all rugged here. Can't worry too much about the outside edge because the outside edge is going to have to get turned off on the other center. But I can see here, I've got to come out another 1/8 of an inch yet on this, which is fine. It's kind of nice too to leave the center because now I know the depth. I can tell from the amount of center I've left here how deep I've gone in this bowl. And I know this is 1.25 inches, so I can go down maybe almost an inch here. That's getting in there pretty good. I'm gonna have to take this out of here. Now, I've got to go straight in more. You can kind of tell from the noise that you're not there yet. Okay. This end is on. Is I in under it? Huh? Am I good? Yeah, well, I'm just forgetting where I'm at here. That's where I want to be. I want to go straight in. And roll the tool. Make sure I didn't change here. I still got to go straighter in on some of these pieces, which is fine too. There's two different kinds of wood, that's why they're hammering. The inlays are really hard. Now I've got the harmonic. I'll get rid of. Now I've got the inlay turned. I've got this part turned here. I should turn the top of these off a little more. Coming out this way, I've got the offset because I'm on a different center, but I just want to finish this. I just want to make this kind of flat. I'm going to want to sand this. Take a parting tool, cut the center down a little bit. Almost even. And that should pop up. You don't want to pop. Ooh, tough one. That looks good. A little more on the bottom. I'll make the final cut here with the 3/8 timber gouge. And I'm going to take the center out of this whole thing. There. Now the cavity's turned. Perfect job. And the outside's faced off here. So now we'll go back. I'll take this apart. Take it out of here. I'll show what we got so far. Every time you do one of these, you do it a little different, you know. Now the center of this is cut. You can see this is my high part, the small part. You see the cavities off center. I would sand this all out. And then I'll turn this over and put it against the flat. I'll turn the back of this, and I'll turn the tenon off. And it'll be all set. On this one, I'm going to, I now have this flat, I have the inside turned. I'm going to chamfer this edge. These just show it's flat. If I chamfer this edge, we're 45 degrees this edge. And that exposes the end grain of those. That'll expose the end grain of the inlays. See, now you're looking at a 45-degree angle. I should actually turn this a little more. And it's just a little more impressive. Right now, I would probably sand that up. That's pretty good. Now it could go down a little deeper. I haven't quite got the tips done yet. I'll do this. Make it a little lower angle down here. Not very flat on top. All right. That's got it. That's got it. Now I'll flatten this out, and I'll be able to put it against the flat wheel. Okay, this is done now, and this surface is done. Now I can reverse this, and put it against the flat plate and turn the tenon off. Okay, now we're mounted against the face plate. Bring the tailstock up, tighten it up, make sure everything's tight. Running pretty true. And now we just turn regular bowl shape. Much easier to do when you have some room to do it here. Now remove the tenon. Take the tenon off, the pressure toward the plate. You're not stressing things too much. Wow, those are hard tenons. This is a persimmon or something. Or could be. Trim this out a little bit. Put a sanding ring in there. There's a 1/4 inch skew. Better turn this off. I don't like that tenon stuff at all. It's miserable stuff. Put the sanding ring out here. Like that. And there's a 3/8 spindle gouge. Clean this up. I think this is pretty good. Make sure the center is lower. Now let's put a couple of rings in here. It's kind of a flat surface with nothing showing here. Put a ring in there, put a ring in here. Uh-oh. My tenon came loose. I just saw it spin.
So you don't have to,
You won't believe it.
you don't have to saw it off, man.
You don't have to saw that off. Anyway, that'll stand out. And then after all of that, we've ended up with a bowl. The sides are chamfered a little bit. And the
Just cut it on it.
top is, this would be the top here. And the sides are, there's a lot to it. But, I have one clapping. Oh, I shouldn't bring her. Anyway, that's it.
Rotten
Thank you.
tomatoes.
Thank you. Is it wine time yet?
Was it
All right, what a demo.
These next ones look better. That was fun. I learned a lot doing that. Next one will be better.